Hello, and welcome once again to another episode of the How Long to Beat podcast. Slightly earlier for us, but it should come in at that same time for you this week. As always, I'm Rick, joined by Alex and Paula. And in a return to regular formatting, we're going to be talking about what we've beaten, retired, played. We're going to turn to a topic, which this week is the Switch Not So Pro. So we'll talk about that, maybe a bit more about hardware revisions in general. We'll see where that conversation takes us. I'm really unprofessional. I don't know if we've got a question. We do have a question that we'll turn to right before everyone's favorite.
How long to beat the game? Nice.
I just need to reset myself. The audience won't have heard it, but I'm still very squishy. Paula, tell us about the Banner Saga.
Yes.
Ooh, this week just before this podcast, I beat the Banner Saga for Nintendo Switch. And this is a strategy game where your decisions outside of battle also matter. And actually, like your units, if you lose anyone, it's probably because you made a bad decision outside of the battle, which on one hand it is neat, but on the other hand, if you're like playing the battles perfectly, it feels kind of bullshit. Overall, the game battle system was pretty good. The story didn't catch me as much as I thought it would. But though it had like some very interesting plot points or bits of information that they could do something with, but they didn't. I also read that the first game is like chapters 1 to 6 of the like overall trilogy, and that these games should be like enjoyed like all three together. Which, well, fine, I guess, because that ending was like so not ending that actually like dampened my experience.
Oh, and Alex is nodding on the other side of my screen as well, so that's not just a you thing.
Oh, no, I actually remember really enjoying the game, but I also understand everything that Paula was saying about it. Like, it's been a long time since I played it, to be honest, but really this game is like, and when you look at how long it takes, it's like 10 hours. To be honest, 1, 2, and 3 are one game as far as I'm concerned.
Yep.
Even pricing wise, it like evens out to about one game. You know what I mean? So,
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, very much. I found interesting that some of your units could take like different like size spaces on the map, and it actually like was very important because you could block out the bigger units by having like some smaller guys like hanging just around it, so that way your more squishy units would be safe from whatever the enemies were. I actually don't remember like the term they use for the species. I do have the Banner Saga 2. I picked both of them up like on a sale for like $2 on the Nintendo Switch. Depending on how much I enjoy the second game in the series, I might or might not get the third. Though I want to give it like the benefit of the doubt, mainly because since they were like released like 2 years apart of each other, I hope that they like fix some of the little things I had trouble with or I have issues with. Overall, good game. Not something I would like jump at the chance to play again.
Yeah.
But yeah, like for tactical video games fan, I think they might enjoy it, especially if you're not like playing it before some of the more well-known games, because you do miss some of the features the other tactical turn-based games have.
What, like quality of life stuff, do you mean? Or
some is quality of life, and also like the variety of units you have, because sometimes I just felt I was like repeating actions over and over again without doing without strategizing a whole lot, and still like went through the battles just without any issues, except in the final battle that I don't know what happened there, but it seems you were supposed to hit the final boss a certain way, and I didn't, and the game just froze on me like in idle animation for all of the characters, and I waited. I turned up the volume just to to make sure they weren't like saying anything. And no, the game just froze, so I had to restart the battle. So yeah, Rick, save me. What have you been playing?
Before I do, I actually want to let you wallow just a little bit further. So I have sort of a weird history with the Banner Saga series in that I own the first one on mobile, but the only one I've actually played, I don't know if either of you are even aware that this existed. They had a free-to-play like online version called the Banner Saga Factions, and it was just the combat component like separated into its own little thing. So I know a little bit about the combat. What I'm curious about, because the combat system's kind of weird in that you have a shield, and you mentioned this last week, Paula, and you have a health, and your damage, a little bit like Advance Wars, is directly related to how much health you have left in terms of how much output you do. Does that health like fully replenish between missions, or is that tied to the story? So I can imagine that being super frustrating if you like take a few heavy hits in one battle and then you roll into the next and you have to sort of carry those through.
Those replenish each time you start a new battle. And sometimes when there's like 2 battles like back to back, you get your units with full health again. The chill I never understood much. Like I think it has to do with the there's instances where when your units won't have like 100% chance of hitting an enemy. I think that has to do with the shield. So you have like to lower the shield to make sure your attacks hit.
Well, there's 2 different types of attack, aren't there? There's a shield attack and there's a health attack.
Yeah.
And the shield, the more shield you have, like you say, the more damage reduction there is, and also percentage chance affected. So that you're sort of incentivized in a way to risk reward taking shield and leaving the person capable of still doing full damage, versus a slightly lower percentage chance but limiting their damage output immediately if it hits.
Yeah, though
he says with authority like to the person who just played the game.
Yeah, like the shield thing, I think it could have been like more polished in the sense that there were like a couple of items in the game that would, if you equip them to a character, the character will never miss. Like it negates the need of a shield entirely.
Okay.
So I did that and it was kind of broken. So whenever an enemy with a high shield stat would arrive, I just use the guy and demolish it.
Yeah. And now, having answered... Oh, sorry, go on.
I was just saying, I remember playing the first 2. I actually never played the third, only because like I played them on the PS4, and by the time the third came out, I think I like just wasn't playing on the PS4 anymore or something, and so I was like... And then like thinking about it, I was like, I made all these decisions. I don't really want to go back and do it again. So I'm just like, play the first 2 and they were fun. It's kind of the downside of that sort of development path. I mean, it makes sense. You know, you put the first one out, you're guaranteed, you make money off of it, and then it's like, okay, well now we have development for the second one, right? Instead of making like a giant project that you might never get finished. But yeah.
And they kickstarted it as well, so that was even more of a consideration.
Yeah.
So are you not like bothered about those choices and finding out where they go ultimately?
Me?
I feel like that'd be the kind of thing that would bug me. Like if you finish Mass Effect 2 and just I've not got the Xbox out anymore, I don't want to play the third one. I don't want to do
Mass
those
Effect
again.
though. It's very different.
No?
Like, like I mean the choices are important, but I found that they were more important on like they didn't feel necessarily like long-ranging, huge ones. They felt more important on like a turn-to-turn basis, in the sense of where it's like they're really important for the journey. Those choices, like they're going to affect your journey, but like ultimately, I don't know if they're like how much I felt they affected like the overall necessarily. I mean, do you know what I don't know. It's sort of hard to explain. It's like in Mass Effect, I felt like you're often making decisions where you're like, this is going to affect the very end of this trilogy. You know what I mean? Where it's like, this is going to affect the end of your game. Whereas Banner Saga, I think, focuses less on the idea of some grand conclusion and more on your choices mattering in this kind of constant unfolding, right? Like some of your decisions will matter now, some of them will matter later, but they're not like weighted as in like do this right now or you're not going to get this at the end. It's like do this and it branches your game out. Like it's just more about the journey, I guess, which sort of sounds sort of weird. But...
It's not about the destination.
But
I know what you mean. There's less of a long-term impact almost.
Yeah. I don't know. Does that make sense, Paula, from what you're experiencing?
Yeah, I don't know if you can hear it, but someone in the construction is hammering on something like really hard.
I can only hear a slight sound, but not much.
I was going to say, while we're talking about noises, an ice cream truck came past very, very loudly, and I'm hoping that didn't come through the audio.
Nothing on my
No,
end.
that didn't.
We'll find out.
Well, hopefully the construction is not that big of a deal right now. Hopefully.
Seems fine.
So, like, it does make a lot of sense to me. Also, the way the game ended, it was like with absolutely no conclusion whatsoever.
Yeah.
But it didn't have like a cliffhanger or anything that would like make you want to play the next game.
Yeah, I remember that too. It's more like because it's all about this like journey, right? Like you're trying to get your caravan to this one place, right? And so you sort of joked last time, it is like Viking Oregon Trail, like honestly. It's like, can you get people where you need to go? Which is the reason why
Norsigan Trail.
Norsigan Trail. Yeah, there we go. That's what you said. Yeah. Which is actually why I enjoyed it, because I found that it was very it's just kind of unique in that sense of where it's like the stakes of the game is just get there, right? Yeah, but I can also understand how that could be a little bit like not as interesting, like especially if you're used to playing something maybe like Fire Emblem, which usually has like a big stakes reason why you're doing things, like there's usually like big like time defying, you know what I mean? Whereas like Banner Saga is a little more pared down in that sense.
Yeah. But not only that, I did like that satisfying ending. Like I don't even care if it is like this great stakes story, but if the ending is like so, I want to say weird and open-ended, it kind of like makes you think like, okay, I played this entire game, but I have no closure.
Right.
So it felt kind of weird because I'm not the kind of player that goes after those endless games. When I do have like one endless kind of game, it does have like, I want to say like a sequence of or a credit or something like makes it all like worth it, or like makes you feel like, yeah, this is a good endpoint. Yeah. This is a good note to end in.
Closure almost.
That's why they're like, play the second one, then the third. But I get what you're saying.
The next game.
Because like, yeah, that's the cheeky response. But like, I get what you mean. Like in Mass Effect, each one has like what I think is a satisfying conclusion. There's lots of debate about the third Mass Effect, but I found when they edited it, I was like, oh, I enjoyed that ending. But yeah, each one, like you're saying, it has like a solid conclusion to it with an overarching thing. But yeah, I think Banner Saga, even I remember, I think that first one sort of ending in that way where you're just kind of like, oh, we're done. Okay.
Yeah, it's like, oh, that happened. Oh, well, next game.
Nice. Okay, well,
right then. I was going to say I would turn to you, Alex, but you have no completions.
I got nothing.
So I will take us straight through. I, by contrast, have lots of completions exclusively to the PlayStation Vita. So there's 4 games. They're all Vita games. The first one, which I've spoken about for a couple of weeks on the bounce, is Uppers. I finished it. I bum rushed the end a little bit, and it was one of those where the RNG that I talked about last week did sour me a little bit. Ultimately, I still had a great time. I do think it was a little bit overlong, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend it to people, but I did have a good time with it. The one I played after, and I really don't think I would recommend, unfortunately, is a game called Dull Grey. I sometimes use. So this is a short, supposedly award-winning, but I don't know what awarding body gave this anything. It's a really, really short visual novel, and it's all about choices, and there is something thematic there, but it doesn't quite click. So the concept is that you are a young child of a single parent family. Your father's died, and your mother's taking you to this place in a sort of post-apocalyptic world where your job is sort of assigned to you by program, or your options are given to you by program, and your options are either to be a lamplighter or a tarryman. What they are is not important for this discussion, but at various points in that narrative, you have the option to say you want to be one or the other. And I don't really want to spoil the twist and the way that they invert that for anyone who wants to play it. But what they did with it, while I understood it, I actually didn't find it very satisfying, particularly because the way that the route actually goes, even when you do hit that novel thing that it's going for beyond the choices that it presents you, the actual narrative doesn't really change in terms of the beats that you hit and the places you go. So you're essentially playing the same visual novel and it's a short 20-minute, very, very linear one. You're playing the same visual novel, even if you get everything immediately 4 or 5 times through back to back to back, see all the endings. And that's assuming you do it perfectly. If you don't do it perfectly, like I didn't, and you need a few tries to twig into what it wants you to do, you could play through it as many as 10 times. And even when you're sort of rapidly skipping through, it doesn't get much quicker. So I wonder whether this is maybe what you talk about in terms of artistry not going very well, by contrast to 13 Sentinels, of it not being done very well.
Wait, what?
What?
Don't you worry about it.
You mean they both
you
don't do
worry.
it very well? Or
No, that's the exact opposite of what I was saying, and I'm sure the audience got that. They swung for the fences and they missed, but
Gotcha.
they put it on Vita, so they got my money anyway. So
okay.
everyone's a winner except me, I guess. So I finished with that very quickly and moved on to a game called Thy Sword, which is a 2D sort of retro platformer-y thing. Didn't like it as much as I thought I would. Based on some of the creators that I'd seen talking about it when it got a Vita release, I was expecting to find something not similar to Cyberian, which is a Vita game that I really, really enjoyed, but something that sort of scratched that same itch. And I didn't really get that. I felt like it outstayed its welcome a little bit. I felt like it was a little bit overly difficult for the sake of being difficult, not a proper challenge, just sort of cheapness. I still had a good time with it, but I probably went in with slightly too high expectations, and that pegged it down a little bit. It doesn't do anything special. If you like the look of it, you'll probably enjoy the play of it, but it's not something that I'd say you have to go out and look at now, kind of thing. It was, it was fine TM. And then the last one, which I did really enjoy actually, was Astro Aqua Kitty. So I think I mentioned this last week. I think I'd started it last week. I played a lot of this game over the couple of days after that to beat it. I didn't realize it was as long as it was, so I spent, I think, just shy of 8 hours playing the thing. And more of what I said last week, really. I really enjoyed the way that it took the controls from the original game, which was like a Defender-like, and put them into a larger map, gave you some more options with weapons, and gave you more variety in terms of the challenges that you faced with it. I don't think they gave you enough variety. I think it ran on a little bit too long. There are 8 worlds. I think really they probably could have capped it at 6 and it would have been better. Particularly as the final world is 4 obnoxiously tedious, drawn-out battles, followed by a final, slightly more obnoxious battle. So it's like a boss gauntlet, but not in a good way. So the way that they set them up in the final world is that to get to the core thing that you need to defeat, you have to destroy a set amount of the level geometry around it because of the corruption that's going on, which is kind of boring because you have a stamina meter which doesn't do a lot except just artificially impede you at certain points. And this is one of the points where it's really a pain point because you're like, right, I've got to destroy all these walls. You've killed all the enemies, but it's like, I've got to destroy enough of this for the gem to appear. And then you get to a point where it's like, right, I've run out of bullets now, so I've just got to sit and wait for a minute for my thing to recharge so that I can fire some more bullets at the wall. This is riveting gameplay. And there were sort of brief pockets of that throughout the game where there was a shortfall between what you had available to you to do and what you would have needed for it to be fun to do it. Things where I think the developers' inexperience with that genre maybe showed a little bit, because it's an RPG, but while the XP system is really well pitched and it's a really nice curve from level to level to level, that doesn't necessarily hold true for the upgrades or the guns. I felt like once I'd found a pairing that worked really well, I had no real incentive to try anything different. I think that tied into the variety a little bit. There's only so many ways that you can dress up the gameplay that they've got there. Again, I think that showed through more the more that you played. But this is another one where I feel like focusing on the negatives ignores the positives, because it felt really close to like a 9 or 9.5. If they trimmed it down a little bit, editorialized it a little bit, maybe polished certain aspects of it. But as it was a really good 8, and it engaged me a lot for significant chunks of time. And I think I would recommend it, especially if you've got a Switch or a Vita. I feel like it's perfect as a handheld pick up and play thing. I wouldn't necessarily want it on a TV or a console. But ultimately, I did have a really good time with it. And if you're looking for a 2D sort of shoot 'em up action RPG hybrid thing, and you've already played the Velocity games, which are miles and away better than this, you should definitely check this out. I did think it was really good. And I should probably roll us into the retirements because I'm the only person that's got one.
Yeah, you're the only retirer today.
And it's a 5th Vita game. Would you believe it? This is the recently released Sturmfront, the Mutant Wars Farewell Edition, which is one of the last few Vita games coming. There's a glut coming out on the 20th. So in a couple of weeks' time, I'll probably have another Vita splurge in terms of playthroughs. There's a few I'm quite excited to get my hands on when they drop. This one I was quite excited for. Ultimately, I was a little bit disappointed by. So it's a retro-esque top-down shooter. It does change things up a little bit. You have a flamethrower as well as your main gun. And the flamethrower has a specific role in clearing out nests, but it also has a very finite but replenishable ammo supply. The problem is I think it maybe leans a little bit too much into the retro, and there's also elements of it being a little bit rushed to get on Vita in time that affect the port, because this is on Switch and PlayStation and all the other things already. So if I take those in turn, so in terms of leaning into its retro a little bit too much, I don't know whether I'd maybe call it overall jank to a degree as well. You move far too slowly. You move painfully slowly. By contrast, there are enemies that move incredibly fast enough that by the time you see them, they're inside your guard because there's a gap between your player sprite and the point at which your bullets start firing. So the enemy can be there and you're moving, and there's a couple of agonizing seconds where it's like, I know you've got me. I can't hit you. You're going to hit me eventually, and then it collides with your hitbox. The other things that don't collide with your hitbox are the pickups. And I would find myself having to stop looking at the enemies and make a special point of directing my character to twig the exact sort of couple of pixels that the pickups would require for you to trigger them. And there were a couple of other little things like that, and I'm sure there would have been more if I played further than I did, where it just felt a little bit archaic and like it had come from that time, but not in a good way. And then in terms of the port being a little bit rushed, I think it's a Unity game, so that doesn't help because Unity just doesn't run well on Vita. It's not well optimized at all. But there were instances where the text was far too small, where they clearly hadn't like reshaped the boxes or done anything about that. Load times were a bit hazy. And I think that probably ties into general jank a little bit as well, albeit for a slightly different reason. I wouldn't even say it was bad. Like there was fun to be had there, but I'd played for about 25 minutes. I'd gotten to level 7 or 5 or 7, I think it was, because the way it does level numbering is a bit weird as well, because you have like an overworld, and then you get to like the bit where the boss is of each level, and that seems to be the even. Anyway, I'd gotten to world 5 or 7, and I'd played for about 25 minutes. And I sort of checked myself and I thought, you know what? I've played it. I've had a bit of fun. I don't really want to carry on. So I put it down.
Good for you.
And that doesn't... Yeah, it's one of those. And I think on Switch especially, again, it's one of those where I think it probably benefits from the pick up and put down if you do click with it. I would imagine the Switch port is better. And if it sounds like it's good... And speaking of sound, the soundtrack was phenomenal. I need to find it out. Find it at some point on YouTube or something. It's proper chuggy sort of dark metal, like 80s-y stuff in a really, really good way. If it sounds like your jam, check it out on Switch or maybe PC. I'd say I wouldn't look at the Vita port of that one, unfortunately. And then in terms of playings, I mean, we'll come back to me, but mine's broadly the same. But let's let you guys have a chance to talk.
Our turn to jump in.
Alex, what have you been playing?
Yeah, so I've literally only been playing 2 games this week because I've been playing 2 monsters. Playing Pokemon Prism still freaking loving it. I've sort of like rested it like a little bit just because CrossCode's leaving Game Pass soon, so I was like, I want to be CrossCode. And I was like, I can play Pokemon Prism whenever I want. But I'm about 4 badges in, only 10 hours. I'm 10 hours in. I've got 4 badges, and there's fucking 20 badges. So I'm like, it's going for a while. Yeah, I'm freaking loving this game. It is so good. Like, it's just, I don't know, for like a Pokemon game, it is the perfect game to play while you're just like watching TV or some shit or just chilling out. Like, I love having a game like that, you know, like I finally bit the bullet and like, listened to all the YouTubers and got Curiosity Stream. So I'm just watching documentaries, and like, it is the fucking perfect documentary game. Cause like, I don't even have to look at it sometimes. I'm just like, all right, what do I have to do? Good. Got it. And I keep going. And then it's like, ooh, we play it. You know what I mean? Like I'm one of those people who I love having a game like that where you can just sit there. You don't really have to listen to it too much. You can just go to town, which might sound like a knock on it, but like it's also good enough that you could like sit and like play it, which I do from time to time. Because every once in a while I'll be like, yeah, I'm just going to, play it while watching something. And then I'm like getting really into what's going on. I'm like, oh, but yeah, Pokemon Prism's good. It has some really cool, like, kind of like, in Legend of Zelda when you'll go underground and it's like it becomes like a side scroller, but like it's not really a side scroller, like it's still clearly from a top down perspective. It's that kind of thing, right? And I mean that in a sense where it's like you can't like suddenly jump, you're like still obviously just navigating your character the same ways, but there's like some fun puzzles and stuff that you can do in a bunch of like dungeons and things when you're like fighting. They're called like the palette patrollers. They look like Power Rangers, honestly, and they're like all like these different colors, but they're actually like have good Pokemon and are interesting to fight. So yeah, anyway, I'm really enjoying it thus far, and it's blowing me the fuck away that this is a fan game. Like I was like, if the Pokemon Company had released this game, I would not have batted an eye. Like it just perfectly makes sense, So yeah, they should hire some of these people. They're great. Fans
are fucking great, yeah. As Sega know from the Sonic Mania games.
Yeah, seriously, right?
Yep.
Game, rather.
Just fucking hire them and release a fucking Game Boy Color game, Like, who cares? They'll just make tons of money. It's not like they're making new Pokemon. They're just reusing the old ones. They'll make bank. Anyway, but...
Don't give them any ideas.
I know, right? I'm also like... But at the same time, I'm like, no, don't. Let me just download it. But I'm also playing CrossCode a lot. I've cooled like a tiny bit on this game. Not like a ton. It's just... So like, as I've gotten a little further in, there's a section in the 8th chapter, 8 out of like 10 of them, where you have to do a series of like 3 dungeons kind of like in a row. And they're just... They're really... They're pretty big, and it's just a lot of fucking puzzles, and like your brain just kind of by the end of it, like I literally yesterday was about to start the 3rd like biggest one of them, and I was like, I'm fucking done. Like there was a puzzle, when you hit a point where you see a puzzle and like your brain's not even like, I don't even want to try. Like that's what happened to me. I was like, I don't even want to fucking try to complete this. I'm done. I'm fucking done. So I was like, I just like backed off and like read a book. But it's like, like pacing was going quite well, I found, to an extent, and then it sort of halted, and the game even sort of comments on it because they're playing an MMO, right? And so some of the characters will be like, guys, we just did 2 fucking dungeons, let's take a break, and they sort of they kind of give that like hint to it, but realistically, I mean, unless you just stop playing the game for a little bit, you know what I mean? Like I'm like, I don't love that necessarily as like a solution when like they mention it. I'm like, well, no, if you want me to take a break from the dungeons, then give me a break from the fucking dungeons. Yeah.
It's the Nintendo conundrum, isn't it? Have you put the Wiimote down and stepped outside at all? No, and it's none of your fucking business, Nintendo.
I know, right? I was like, no, make your game fucking yeah. But anyway, and also there's a boss that I fought in one of these fucking temples. People will know when you get there. It's like a blob boss. It's a bullshit boss. Like it really is. Like it was not a fun boss. I even looked up, I was like, CrossCode, fucking jelly boss. That's what I Googled. And of course it popped up. First hit was the first thing. And I was like, I fucking knew it. I knew there was many people who were pissed about this boss. So anyway, but I have to say, in a game wherein that's kind of like the only complaint I have, I'm like pretty pleased, especially where I'm almost 30 hours into it. And I'm like, all right. Like I've been playing a lot of it and I'm doing a lot of stuff in it. So I'm like, okay, fine. I can give that. And also they have great difficulty sliders because like instead of a difficulty setting, they have like damage received, frequency of enemy attacks, and you can lower those to like 20% or something.
Love that.
It's just a slider. Yeah, it's really awesome. And then puzzles as well. I don't know. I can't remember what the thing is, but there's a slider for the puzzles and I've never tried that yet. Who knows? Maybe I will because I'm getting too tired. But I think it like simplifies the puzzles a little bit. Maybe it solves part of it for you. I'm not sure. I have to check, but I know there's a slider for the puzzles. So that's really cool. But at the same time, like the game is meant to be challenging, and I don't know. it just doesn't feel good when you have to like bump something down because you're like, I know how to beat this boss, but it's a fucking pain in the ass and I don't feel like it, you know? Like that's kind of what happened. I was like, I know that I'd have to do something pretty much perfectly in order for it to work. And I was like, I'm not fucking with that, man. Like, I don't want to do that, you know? Like, I was like, I don't care enough. And the trading system is kind of bullshit. And it, like, there's so many traders. There's so many of them. There's so fucking many. And you get all these like fucking things. And I guess you're supposed to trade, but like, it's a headache. It's a goddamn headache because you have to go to individual like trading stalls in order to like get better equipment, but you also have to like trade to get better stuff. But then also you'd kind of have to like grind through plants to get the equipment. Anyway, I'm not here for it, you know? So like the core gameplay of it, the combat. Also, one other thing that sort of bugged me a little bit. You get these elements, right? There's 4 elements that you can receive. And you get the last 2 elements really late in the game, like in the 8th chapter. But you start with 2 of them. And there's this thing called elemental overload. So if you're using too many of your element attacks, eventually you'll overload and you can only use normal attacks. But like the elemental overload happens no matter which one you use. So if I'm using the ice one and then I switch to fire, it's still creeping up. And I'm like, what the fuck, man? Like, what the fuck is the point? There's literally no incentive to switch between them unless you think a certain attack's going to like hit an enemy better. But like, you know, like I was like, why wouldn't you make it that the ice one overloads, you can use your fire? Like, why wouldn't you let me do that? Instead, it's like, no, they all fucking overload. Like, it's just because then you're fighting a boss and you fucking overload and you're like, all right, well, I guess I just have to fucking run around for a minute. I really don't like that. I just thought it was such a wasted opportunity and just kind of a dumb system. I don't even understand why the elements have to overload. You know what I mean? Like, I don't actually get it. I'm like, what is this doing? Like, what? It's not like I could spam it anyway. Like, do you know what I mean? And like, I'm going to anyway because like, literally, I'm going to use the elements to fight the enemies. And then when it overloads, I'm just going to fucking wait until it's ready. So like, what has this elemental overloading even done gameplay-wise besides making me wait? You know what I mean? Like, I was trying to figure out, like, what's the purpose? Is it so that I'm, like, more strategic? But I'm like, not really. I'm just kind of waiting more. So, I don't know.
Yeah, with it being a unified bar, you can't really, like, you're either waiting or you're waiting.
Yeah, and, like, if you use your normal attacks, it'll, like, lower it, like, a little bit quicker. But, like, your normal attacks are so inefficient that what I've found is actually more efficient is to just dodge and swing at the air, because hitting the enemies is risking you losing life, and it's so inefficient that it's like, what's the point? So I don't know. It's bothering me a little bit. Like, and I'm noticing that I think with this game, even the achievements say this. Not a lot of people have gotten very far in this game, I don't think. Like, what's cool in Xbox is it shows you the percentage of players like who I think have played the game,
like Steam, yeah,
who get it, and it's like. It was a sharp drop-off after the first, like, 2 or 3 chapters. Like, a really sharp drop-off. And so, part of me is, like, wondering, like, yeah, I think maybe. And it's so... I don't know. It's really good. I think it's bigger than it needs to be. Right now, it's sitting at, like, an 8 for me. Like, it's a good game, and it's a fun game. I think it might be better on the Switch, maybe. Because I think pick up and play on this would probably be pretty fun. Like an on-the-go version would be pretty nice. But yeah, I'm just not sure. There's just little things that are starting to eat at me a little, you know? Like, I was like really, really loving it. But one thing I will say is the music is fucking amazing. Even my girlfriend was like I was like, do you want me to put headphones on? She's like, no, this music's like really chill. I was like, cool, sure. Like, it's just very like relaxing and calming and soothing. The battle music, of course, is intense and good, but like the normal music of it is pretty good. So anyway, I don't know. I just have, like, I don't want to come off as too overly negative because, like, I am quite enjoying it. It's just, you know, I'm at that point in a game where, like, you're starting to just hit the little things that, like, at first they don't bother you, but as you play it and you get better and, like, they compound and compound and compound and you're just like, like, because I had to rely on the trading at one point because...
Yeah, and it's that thing from before where it's like, I'm loving the game. Here's all the little pain points, but that's what the conversation is. I think we may have a little bit of a sound delay issue again.
Oh,
really?
Oh, I was fine, but maybe.
I don't know. I feel like you were talking and then I jumped in. Oh no, there's definitely a delay. There is absolutely a delay.
Well, we can just pause here and just jump on to Zoom if you want. Yeah, let's just jump on to Zoom. I can just keep the recording going. I'll pause this.
Okay.
Paula, take a note that at about 37 or so minutes in, that went off, and then that way you can just clip it out. It shouldn't be too hard to clip out. I was done anyway, so this will be pretty easy. We'll just transition into what someone else is playing.
Yep.
Hold on here.
Oh, I have to open soon.
Oh, before you close anything, am I back up to speed or is it still super delayed?
I don't know.
Oh, I think I'm back up to speed because you came back immediately.
Oh, do you want to just keep going then?
I think we can probably just keep going. I think do you know what? It's weird. So the internet is actually quite good, except when it isn't on the data. It's been quite strange. So first few days I was here, it's super patchy, and it's just seemed to gradually get better. And I have zero explanation for why that is, and I can't wait for them to fucking install the Wi-Fi. But in the meantime, it being better generally is just a good thing.
Well, then why don't I'll just lead in for Paula then.
Yeah, sure thing.
Perfect. All right, well, anyway, that's enough about my games. Paula, what have you been playing?
I've been playing a little bit of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and by playing is I got a couple of more coworks. I haven't had too much time to play lately. And the other one is Animal Crossing New Horizons. Again, I had to do some recording for the video talking about the database and the motivations with the database and stuff. So I had to run around the island and record little clips of, I don't know, fishing, back catching, and entering the store and the museum and stuff.
Nice.
I wish I could have played video games for my degree.
You can actually make a video game for your thesis if in my branch of engineer because of computers.
Nice.
I went into the wrong field. Anyway, sorry, crack up.
Oh, and the day I had to record that, it was yesterday, a couple of hours before having to edit the actual video. Red was on my island. The first time I logged into Animal Crossing, in a week or two, and Red was there, selling his fort art and one original. And it's very fun because the knockoff Mona Lisa looks just angry and it's funny.
Is that how Red's always worked? Has he always had an actual artwork and just a few fakes as well? I always thought he just always sold fakes.
At least in New Horizons, he has one or two. I think on my island, I've only seen one at a time, but sometimes he can show up with multiple real art pieces. You have to inspect them though, and that's the fun part because you have to zoom in the art piece and compare it with a picture of an original one in your phone or something if you don't know the piece of art.
Right. So this is probably just my ignorance of the franchise then, because I only played Wild World, and I just sort of assumed very quickly that he just sold forgeries, and stopped dealing with him at all.
It could be that way in prior games. I only know how he works in New Horizons because it's the only game that I've played a whole lot of, because nearly I dropped it at 20 hours or something like that. So yeah, that's been my week. How about you, Rick?
It's sort of weird because all the games I've played, I've beaten. So I've still got Lichdom, Battlemage, and Front Mission Gun Hazard on my playing. I haven't touched Front Mission, and I've played maybe another 5 minutes of Lichdom. I am thinking, unfortunately, that's probably going to end up being a retirement, just because, like I was saying in previous weeks, it's sort of falling a little bit short of what it sort of had an early promise that it could have been, which is a real shame because there's something there. And in the early half an hour that I played, it felt like I was onto something special. And then as the game goes on and it starts throwing more enemies at you, you start to realize why it's got a very mixed reception on Steam. And that's quite sad. But, it is what it is. We move on. Listen, I've got... Oh, do you know what? That's a lie. I haven't put Wargroove on here. I've started playing Wargroove. I can't believe I didn't put that on the show notes. Yes, this week...
Silly boy.
This month's Game of the Month, Wargroove, I did in fact play a little bit of. My screen's gone black. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
We can hear you and we can see you.
That's great. I can see 2 green squares. This is going to be another one for you to edit out, Paula. I'm really sorry. Let me hang up and join back in 2 seconds.
Beautiful.
And we're fixed. I don't know.
All right,
Anyway.
so you've been playing Wargroove.
This month's game of the month, Wargroove, I've played the opening 2 missions of. So far, I really like it. It's a little bit... Clip that. That's not how I wanted to start that sentence. It's incredibly reminiscent of Advance Wars. That's clearly by design. I love the pixel art. I like the mechanics so far. It's another, I think I'd like it more on a Switch, just because of like the pick up and put down ability of a game like that. But the controls on PC are good. Looks good on the big screen. It's early days, but no complaints so far. I like it.
Nice.
And,
yeah.
So go on.
Oh, I was going to say, I played this one on the Switch, and it's great on the Switch. Like, it was just kind of
It is
perfect.
amazing on Switch.
Yeah.
Doesn't surprise me that that's where both of you played it. I was bribed for my Game of the Month vote with a free key, so I was always going to be playing on PC.
I straight up voted for this one too. Like I also voted Wargroove just because I was like, it just needs this, you know. I was like,
Yeah. I also have been thinking of going back to it because of the extra. I think it has like an extra campaign or something like that.
yeah,
No?
Yeah, there's like a DLC thing or something. I remember someone mentioning that.
yeah. I have no interest going back. This game's hard as balls, like in a good way.
I've heard that people have been talking about getting to Act 3 and just being like, not good anymore. I need to bump the difficulty down, and that's probably going to be me as well. 'cause
Bad.
It's pretty tough,
Probably
Paula.
gonna be
It's
me.
pretty tough. I mean, I didn't bump it down, but like, it's hard if you don't play this type of tactical game where it's like you're gonna kill a lot of your units. It's pretty tough.
And not everyone's a veteran of the original Fire Emblems and like the gauntlets that you have to put themselves through to like do well there. So.
Yeah, you're like an expert tactics player, Paula.
So that I have the little masochist problem because of Fire Emblem Awakening Lunatic. The flashbacks are real.
Yeah, right. You've played Fire Emblem Awakening Lunatic. Yeah, I don't
General
think you can
Paladin
comment on the
14.
difficulty of Wargroove.
Okay, I'll just go to my corner now.
It wasn't that hard.
I'm just saying, you're real good at games.
This is the week you want to be editing, so you can clip it out. Oh dear.
Should we move on then?
But yeah, I don't think I was going to say I don't think I've forgotten any more games. I'm pretty sure that is everything I've played. So yes, topic.
Yeah, big topic this week. So there was the new Switch Oh Lord edition just got released. Yeah. OLED. Yeah, Oh Lord is how I feel about it. Yeah. The OLED fucking version, which okay. So we're going to talk about hardware revisions this week in general. But this is the fucking stupidest thing I have seen come out of Nintendo in a long time. And like I know people are saying like, oh no, you don't make sense. OLED is so pretty. And I'm like, first off, the fucking PS Vita did this in 2011. Fucking 10 years ago. I'm sorry. 10 fucking years ago.
There's a meme doing the rounds comparing the two, and it's fucking hilarious.
Right? Like
because the Vita also had Bluetooth, which Switch still can't do Bluetooth audio.
Oh my god!
I mean, that credit where it's due. It's also running 2 Joy-Cons, and there's but that also bollocks. You can make it work.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what I mean? I'm like, what? So like, yeah, fucking Vita had a touchscreen in the back. Anyway, okay. So.
No one wanted the touchscreen at the back. That's not an argument in favor of the Vita.
No, it's not. I don't give a shit about the Vita anyway.
2 actual games.
Right, exactly. But I just mean like it had a lot of shit on it. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a lot of stuff going on.
Take that back.
No, like I mean, like it was able to do a lot.
Going on.
But sorry, what were you gonna say, Paula?
Yeah, if there's something like going on with both the Switch and the Vita, there are like a lot of features that are just there to be there, and not many people use it, like the AR camera that is only used with Labo.
Yeah, what the fuck? Anyway, one thing I will say about this, and the reason why this makes no sense to me, is that they just released, like a year or so ago, the Switch Lite, which I bought one because genuinely, I fucking love that thing. It is so excellent. The form factor is incredible. It is super light. It is portable. That's what it's meant for. It has a great D-pad.
Paula's wrapping hers on screen right now.
Yeah, Paula's got hers. I got mine right behind me charging, and a nice little display. And then the next revision they make the only benefits are for portable gaming. What the fuck? Like, I look at this thing, I go, why would you do this? Because genuinely, so many of the people who bought this because they want to play portably have already bought it. And so what? Are you targeting people who haven't bought a Switch yet? Fucking newsflash, everyone's still fucking buying Switches. Like, and also, I'm not sure how well this is going to work, because I'm certain these will sell. Obviously, they'll sell. It's more expensive than the original Switch. If I'm a fucking parent, I'm just buying the original fucking Switch. You know what I mean? Like, I don't get it. Anyway, fucking hell. And it can't do 4K. In 2016, we could do 4K. Like, I know it doesn't seem like it's that important, but man, Monster Hunter Stories 2, frame rate is already shit. And this is a new game coming out that is console exclusive to the fucking Switch, man. Like, the Nintendo, you gotta power it up just a little bit, man. Like, even just a bit. And I mean, Sony and Microsoft proved that you could do this.
Nintendo power it up.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
But seriously, right? Like, I'm like, you know what? You could do it to the point where it's like, you can still have the Switch be fine, and the Switch can still be the main thing. Like, look, I have a PS4, right? Like, I didn't have the PS4 Pro, but we all know that a lot of those fucking late game PS4 games, they play so much better on the new one, but you can still play them on the PS4. You just heat up your entire home, which is what 13 Sentinels did. Oh my shit.
You have a PS4 like just on the corner, like ready to take off.
It's a PS furnace is what it should be called.
Hey.
But do you know what I mean? Like, when I see this, I'm like, guys, like, literally, if they had and what I'm genuinely afraid of, is that Nintendo next year is going to announce a Nintendo Switch that is actually a better version, that is like slightly better in the docked mode, and that this is going to be like the nice one you get if you want portable gaming, and there'll be like a nice one if you want a fucking, good docked experience. And wow, what a pain in the ass that's going to be. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel it coming. Anyway, whatever. I'm done.
I hope not.
Yeah, Rick, you're like, please God, no.
Yeah, and before I jump in, I just want to shout out what I think you'd stolen the joke, to be fair, but the joke that you made when you put the video in our little group chat, which was, and the crowd went mild.
Yes.
That joke is beautiful.
So my situation is slightly different to Alex and Paula's in that I don't own a Switch yet. So I was sort of waiting for what was expected to be the Pro, and having seen it, I understand why they've not called it the Pro, whether or not there's another revision coming down the line. As a Switch virgin, I like all the changes they've made. Heard OLED, whatever. I play, like, I own an OLED and an LCD Switch, and I play Vita, and I play the LCD far more because everything else bar the screen is better, and the screen is only noticeable to me if you have them side by side. I like that they're getting rid of some of the bezels. I like that the kickstand will withstand more than a mild breeze.
Yeah, that makes way more sense.
Yeah, 100%. My brother's got a Switch, so I've played one. And it's funny because the kickstand's on one side. And so if you look at the wrong side funny, it just topples anyway. It's not even it's not a competent stand.
It should have just been this stand from the start. Like, honest to God. It makes yeah.
Yeah, like,
we'll get into this when we... Sorry, go on.
Like, a thing that happened sometimes when you're trying to play, like, on tabletop mode. Like, the stand's just, like, bends, like, the other way, like, all the other way.
It just snaps off.
Falls flat. It's not off. And I have to put it, like, on again.
I also love the Anakin meme that was like, you fixed the Joy-Con drift, though, right? You fixed the drift, though, right? Like, these fucking things are gonna fucking drift so bad. Like, oh my God. Oh, Nintendo,
that
what
meme was
the
a missed
fuck?
opportunity. Because, like, on the second, like, you fixed the Joy-Con drift, all right? It could have just, like, gone off camera or something, because
that
it
would
is
have been very
bad.
good, yeah. If the bottom half of the meme's just, like, off center.
Right?
God damn.
There was never any
but
Joy-Con drift. Sorry, right?
That's all right. It's the Apple approach. A small number of our users experienced an issue. That's not a small fucking number.
Yeah.
Anyway.
This is what drives me nuts,
but
though. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Paula.
Some friends on another group chat were like memeing about the Nintendo Switch OLED, and one of them was like, you know what? I want that fucking port, because like I was trying to look for the the Ethernet cable to USB connector or something like that, and I couldn't find it fucking anywhere. But so it's like we've reached a point where the actual port is more interesting than the actual Switch unit for some players because they can't get their hands on a fucking adapter.
And this is an interesting argument on the price because the difference in the internal storage, which has been doubled, and what you'd spend on a third-party LAN adapter, and this isn't a justification of the price increase, but if you're someone who was going to buy an SD card and that adapter, that's most of the difference in price made up already.
SD we'll cards are when we so talk about cheap now.
A 32 gigs, like £10, if that. Yeah. But that's the thing, £10 for that, 30 for a LAN adapter, £10 to lose the bezels, and you've sort of justified the cost. But then it's 3 or 4 years on, and all those internal components are cheaper, so it's a non-argument. We'll come to this when we get to hardware revisions generally. These kinds of things are why I generally wait for the mid-season refresh before I touch hardware anyway. It served me well for just about everything. I hope to God that they don't announce another one next year because I'm planning on buying this one so I can play Shin Megami Tensei 5.
I just honestly think it is. Like, I really think... Because, like, look, Nintendo... Okay.
Well, they've got to announce something, haven't they? Because effectively, what they released was outdated at the time of release.
Yes.
Like that Tegra chip is not as powerful as a PS4, let alone a PS5.
Right.
you can make the argument, and it sort of holds water, but it sort of doesn't, that Nintendo operate in their own pool separate from PlayStation and Xbox. It's like, well, that's fine if you don't want any of the bigger third parties. And, maybe you don't. But then you're also going to hamstring what you do want on there. The ports are severely limited. What Nintendo can do with it is relatively limited. Games that are the lifeblood of that thing, which are the great indies that would have in years past been on Vita and are now sort of moving from Vita forwards and also downwards from PC, aren't in a position to run properly anymore because the demands that they make on that system, it's not able to keep up with. They still haven't put fucking folders on the thing. That's a side issue.
Well, and my problem too is that it's no longer just a handheld, right? Like, I would honestly say, like, there's an argument to be made for something like when the Game Boy came around. Like, that was like running on a fucking toaster, right? Like, it was just like a downgrade. But the reality was you were making games for that, right? Like, that's what it was for. Now it's like the problem with the Switch, and it's a good and bad thing, is that, well, shit's got to run docked. So, like, it also has to be this, like, home console experience while also being a portable experience. So you can't really feasibly be just making lower, intensity DS games anymore, right? And, like, which was a fucking... Anyway, that was a heavenly era. The DS, man, oh God, there's so many good. I just got the JRPG, like, the bitmap books thing, like, on the history of JRPGs, and, like...
What a console for JRPGs, though, the DS. There's some bangers.
Shit!
Some bangers. But on the flip side, it's also got to run handheld. So anyone who thought that you were going to get 4K power out of this thing was out of their fucking minds. I'm sorry. It just was never going to happen. Now, if they do release a new one, and I think at this point, because the next-gen consoles from the other manufacturers are out, I don't think it's a Pro. I think, if anything, what you get is the Switch 2 Tegra G2 Boogaloo. And it's a whole new console, plays all the Switch games, but it's the same form factor. And it's powered up to the max sort of thing. And I think, if anything, with the silicon shortage, you don't get that next year, you get that the year after.
Yeah.
My working theory is the reason that this is such a underwhelming refresh versus what they might have done otherwise is purely based on silicon availability. I think if COVID hadn't happened and the manufacturers hadn't shut down, and then one of the manufacturers hadn't had a fire when they reopened, I think you see a more powerful processor in there. I think you see more RAM in there. I think it's just a market reality. Yeah. Maybe that's me making excuses that they don't deserve, but that's my working theory.
I also think they could. I don't know. Yeah.
The other thing that they could be working on, and that's just me talking out of my ass, is that maybe they are waiting on some battery prototype that will give them like a better battery life. Because let's face this, the Nintendo Switch in portable mode doesn't have the best battery life out there. So maybe they have to pair that new chip with a better battery, or do something like to the motherboard so it is more efficient. like what they did with the original Switch model and the V2.
Yeah. I mean, look, just keep an eye out for a bunch of cheap parts whenever they come available, because then Nintendo's working on some new shit. Like, I mean, I'm pretty sure this was because like the company had a bunch of OLEDs and they were like, time to strike, like they're cheap, let's get them. Which is like how the Game Boy was made, right? Like, it's how Nintendo does a lot of their stuff. I don't know. I feel like the next thing we see from Nintendo is gonna probably be a dud. This is what Nintendo fucking does, They get scared and then they release Wii U. You know what I mean? Like Nintendo 3DS, and you're like, cool. It's actually, when you actually play it, it's nice. But then you're like, well, what the fuck is this? So like, I have just a bad feeling.
How do they Wii U the Switch though? How do they fuck that up?
Well, they put out Switch 2.0. And then they focus their new games on that. But the reality is that everyone's playing this. It's how they did it with the Wii U. Because, like, honestly, you could just release another Switch that's more powerful. But everyone's like, I don't want it. I have my Switch. Why would I go play this thing? They can't transfer enough people over to the Switch 2. Development stalls on it. People just sort of focus on the Switch. And then they just vanish and run to Microsoft and Sony. It's what happened on the Wii U. Like, they put out... And they bungle the marketing. Like, that's one of the big things. Nintendo's names are bad. I mean, Microsoft probably takes the cake, but Nintendo, bad. Like the new, okay. So we have the 3DS. We have the 3DS XL. This is a lovely
segue, by the way. I like
it. Yeah, we have the 2DS, the new 2DS XL, the new Nintendo 3DS, the new Nintendo 3DS XL. What the motherfucking shit? Like, it's just like, I am confused. I straight up still have a hard time sometimes thinking, wait, which one's which again? Like, wait, what came first? Oh, right. The 3DS XL is just a bigger version, but they did actually change a lot from the 3DS. So that one was a revision. Anyway, if you're a consumer, it's
the XL came along at the same time, didn't it? It was
more
or less identical.
No, it's not. It's quite different. It's quite different from the 3DS. The 3DS was...
What's different? Functionally, it's identical.
Functionally, but not form-wise. Like, sorry, Paula, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, like form-wise, is like one of the things they fixed. It was like, but when you close the 3DS, it got like these lines from the frame from the bottom screen on it imprinted.
Yes, the VNF
3DS
one, it was oddly shaped, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And this one like just fixed that problem. I don't know like the other things like the 3DS XL did, but I do know that the bigger screen does take more advantage of the 3DS 3D functionality of it.
Yeah,
it's easier to see on the biggest display. I remember hearing.
Yeah, and like it had a much better form factor because the 3DS itself was like really kind of like sort of like blocky and like kind of cut into your hand a little bit. Yeah, whereas the 3DS XL had this good bezel, and I also believe it had better cameras. Which who gives a shit? But it did have those
cameras anyway.
I know, right?
Yeah.
The one thing I'll also say that I did prefer, the 3DS XL put the microphone jack over to the left-hand side, whereas the 3DS it was directly in the middle, which is just a bit weird. You're like, ooh. So internally, not a whole lot, but like it just felt a little. It just felt a little odd. I preferred it because it like went off to the side for me. Just because when you think about where your headphones, like if you have plugged in ones, it's usually the headphone plugs into the left side of your headphones. And so if you actually put that on the left side of the Nintendo of the DS, it actually like trails better than if it's like in the middle. It just kind of gets away. It's a small thing, but it actually makes a difference.
If you say so.
Yeah, from what I've done with it.
This is another example of me waiting though. So my brother bought the black Zelda special edition of the Viennetta 3DS because he wanted one. He wanted to play Ocarina of Time on that, and I tried it. I've played a few of the eShop games that he had, so I didn't have to rebuy them there. And it is an odd shape to handle. I bought one of the new variant 3DSs, one of the nipple editions, and was very, very happy with it. Did everything I wanted, had a slightly faster processor, which was nice. I love the faceplates. I took advantage of that. Nice. And that's one instance where the XL variants are different because the new 3DS XLs didn't have a faceplate that you could change at all, whereas the smaller one did.
Sad
And
about that.
The 2DS XL
Pardon?
looks a little weird when I look at it. Like it's like a smartphone.
it is strange. It's almost like it's come full
Is
circle
it?
back to the oddness of the Viennetta, yeah. And most of them have weird texturing on the back as well.
Yeah.
You can tell it's sort of more kid-aimed, even though for people who weren't bothered about 3D, it's like the best one to get.
Well, because my thing though is like, even if you don't like the 3D, I personally do think it's weird to not get with the 3D because like some of the games.
You've got to remember the
just
time
work
though,
real
because
nice
people
for it.
were weird about the 3D mucking up children's eyes. And when you're talking about parents and what they're buying, if you can say, "Hey, there's 3D," but if you don't even want to think about that, here's this little doorstop one that doesn't have it.
Oh, no,
and then we get closer to the end and like, here's the better version of the doorstop. It looks a bit more like the normal one now.
Yeah, sorry. I understood the 2DS entirely, like the first one. It was just the later one, like it looked to me, I was like, who's this for? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I get that.
Yeah, you know? I was like, who's this for? I don't, what?
Yeah, like my sister, my older sister has a 2DS, and it feels so light. It feels cheap. I don't know. Like, it is a very, very light system, and I guess like for long playing sessions, it is better in some regards. But since they wanted to make like a 3DS but cheaper, it also feels kind of cheap in some regards. Like, I don't know what it is about the screen. Maybe it's because like the entire top screen is like one big screen.
Yeah. So one of the interesting things about the 2DS is that it isn't actually two separate screens. It's a big screen that just displays two separate images.
Yeah.
Yeah,
which I think is hilarious.
Yeah, it is.
I actually saw someone like opening one, and it is hilarious, like how they like. I don't want to say they chip out, but they kind of did. Like,
oh no, that's absolutely what they did.
Like by tape, like by literal tape. They divided the screens and then like program the thing in a way that the top part of it displayed like the screen one and the lower part of the screen two.
I mean, the 3DS to me was just sort of like, they were just kind of a confusing line. Like there was just a lot of them, right? And like it was sort of like, I think even when I bought them, because I bought an XL, I don't think I ever had the original 3DS. I think I just remember playing one of my friends because like he let me try it, and I was like, I don't like it. But then I got the XL and was like, oh, I like it now. But I think also like the new one came out around the same time, and it was like much more expensive, particularly in Canada. And I was like, huh? Why would I do that? So I was just like, thanks. It was at a time when Nintendo, like I had no Nintendo consoles. The 3DS got me back into Nintendo. And God, I love that little thing. Anyway, sorry. I don't want this to be a love fest. Yeah.
It speaks to Nintendo's inconsistent marketing, but it also, on the point of the 2DS, speaks to the idea of console revisions that remove features. But then conversely can also be some of my favorite in spite of them. So I did list them out in the show notes. We don't necessarily need to go through all of them, but
well,
two of my favorite.
Do you want to go backwards in time? Because we're going to hit a bunch of these anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I was aiming backwards anyway. I'm aiming sort of back to the DS and PSP era.
Perfect. Let's do the DS. Yeah, let's hit it.
So the DSi obviously removed the GBA slot, but the PSP alongside it, they had the PSP Go that removed the UMD drive. But the PSP was blown wide open in terms of piracy and everything else. So that doesn't matter as long as you don't mind the 16 gig limit, because those M2 memory cards that it takes are nigh impossible to find, and there's not really a normal adapter of them. You can put emulators on it. You can put whatever sort of ISO files for like games you want on it. And so it becomes like the perfect portable because you've got all the games there. You haven't had to pay through the nose and juggle the PSP's terrible implementation of PSN to get the games. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful console and wonderful form factor. Even the tiny analog stick, they actually managed to do really well in that shape. I love my PSP. I play it semi-regularly. It's very good.
Both the Vita and the PSP had some pretty good revisions, I think. Like, I mean, the Vita's revision to you lose the OLED screen, but like you said, I've got both, and I'm going to be honest with you. Unless you put them next to each other, the OLED obviously looks better, but like, it's not fucking night or day better. It's like, oh yeah, that's slightly better.
That's where
I enough that you're playing. I was going to say, I know you agree, pal. I know you disagree.
Yeah.
But
because like,
you're outnumbered, basically, because I'm exactly the same. I've never sat playing my LCD model and thought, oh, this would look better on the OLED because the LCD still looks great.
Yeah.
What do you think? Everything else is better about the LCD version.
No, but the LCD it still looks better, but I really miss having the OLED because my OLED Vita kind of died because at least I tend to play many games that are either visual novels or games that have very vibrant colors.
Oh, okay.
And they pop up so much more on the OLED that it to the point that I actually consider maybe a Switch OLED could be nice. But then I remember I had 2 other Switches and I'm like, okay, I'm good. Also,
there's not enough to justify a new Switch for you.
Yeah. Also, the fucking pricing, it is only $50 more. In the US, I don't know how much more expensive it's gonna be for you two guys.
Yeah.
But here, a regular Nintendo Switch is already a $450. So I am expecting the OLED is gonna either take anywhere from your left kidney to your firstborn child.
Seriously. One of the things that I actually, I wasn't a huge fan of the DSi. I just didn't understand what the point of it was because it came out about almost the same time as the 3DS did, and it was the 3DS had pretty fucking close. They're way closer. Than
it was at least 8. The 3DS might have been announced very close, but the DSi was out a while before because the whole eShop thing was a thing. My brother had one and made good use of it. So.
Oh, wait, sorry. Yeah, I'm totally wrong. It was years and years and years before that. Oh, no, wait.
Yeah,
actually, wait, hold on.
Well, the 3DS came out in 2012.
No, it wasn't that long, actually, because the 3DS came out in 2011, and the DSi came out in 2009. So it actually wasn't that
so there's
long.
At least... What's probably conflating it is that the 3DS would have been announced very, very close.
Yes, and I think
that's... You've got the lead in.
Yeah, that's why for me it felt a little odd to go and buy one because it was if you get a DS Lite, you get all of the you get the GBA support, you get all that stuff, and then the 3DS is coming, so it's you know what I mean? But anyway, to each his own. I love the DSi.
Looks... Oh, sorry. I'm so fucking sorry. The DSi, looks to me like such a pointless quote unquote upgrade because it looks more like a downgrade to me. You lose the GBA slot, and there are DS games that use that slot for accessories. Accessories.
Yeah, Guitar Hero.
Why? What's the thing with DSi? I think it has a camera, but what else?
Well, it has a camera, and it had the first incarnation of the eShop in DSiWare.
Yeah, the SD card slot. See, the SD card slot, that's a big
was the trade-off because it's more powerful on the inside as well.
Yeah.
Although you didn't see in normal games.
Things from it.
What I will say is, I think hackers, like you said, for the PSP Go, love the DSi because suddenly it was... all bets were off.
Very breakable.
You put that SD card in there, and it was you didn't have to do the stupid Game Boy Advance fucking there was lots of ways to hack your old DS lights with the Game Boy anyway. There's a whole lot of different ways of doing it, but SD card was just pop it in, you done.
Let's go, baby.
Yeah. But I would say, arguably for me, the greatest goddamn hardware revision Nintendo ever made was the Game Boy Advance SP. That thing was incredible because. Think too, Game Boy Advance, you got this thing, and form factor feels great, but you still didn't have a backlit screen. Then in comes
and it takes double A's.
Right, it takes double A's. Then you got this motherfucking rechargeable battery, backlit screened, goddamn fits right in your freaking pocket, gorgeous looking thing that hardly even looked like a game console, especially when it came out at the time. This shit looked like you got the new Apple whatever, especially if you got the AGS 101, which my god, that had an excellent screen on it. That thing is I still love this goddamn thing.
Looks great, doesn't play great. Those shoulder buttons are horrific. There's no travel on the face buttons, and I'm reticent to give Nintendo praise for adding a backlight back in that they took out of the Game Boy Light and decided not to put in for 3 consoles afterwards.
Yeah, to be fair, no one got the Game Boy Light except Japan, right?
Yeah, but that's not the fucking point. They'd fixed the problem and then they unfixed it again for the Game Boy Color and the Game Boy Advance, which...
Wait, the Game Boy Color doesn't have a backlight?
No, it doesn't.
No.
Oh,
Lord no.
The original Game Boy Advance is one of the most ergonomic consoles known to man. And it's only with aftermarket IPS backlit screens that it becomes perfect.
Yes.
The Micro also had a backlit screen, but they took away the Game Boy backwards compatibility because that was a separate chip.
Yeah.
I love that form factor even more, although I recognize that it is a little bit of a cataract-inducing screen.
Yeah, I mean, what I'll say is like, because I totally know what you mean with the Game Boy Advance, like with the buttons. I like those buttons weirdly enough, just because they're big enough for me. Like I find that I can use them totally fine, and I find that the shoulder buttons, my fingers actually rest really nicely on them, and like I can just pop them down really easily. So I've liked them, but I get it. It's like, but I mean, for instance, it's like how I don't like the Vita's buttons because I'm like they're so tiny, but I also see how
the Vita's
what?
You don't like the Vita's buttons?
No. I hate those things.
He's definitely
they're so
said
small.
before.
Yeah,
they have great travel though, which the Game Boy SP buttons just don't.
But I think this is the difference, right? Like I think there's two things you can kind of enjoy, right? Like, do you want better travel or do you want like that better feel, more just even more surface area? And for me, the more surface area is important. My fingers go on those little buttons, and I'm like, God damn it, where are they? That's just me though. But yeah, actually, speaking of the Game Boy Color, that funny enough, and there's this French book, L'Histoire de Nintendo, Volume 4, which by Florent Gorge.
What that translates to.
Yeah, pretty easy to understand. And he talks about how like the team who made the Game Boy Color were like frankly embarrassed by it because they thought it was just really shit. Like they were like, this is such a bad half step. This is like, we put color on it. Like, you know, they were they were kind of embarrassed. Like, I guess they were just sort of like they needed to put something out. And it was because it was such a half step between like, and ironically enough, it's become one of like the greatest, but I would say it's one of my favorite handhelds, but it's also because the Game Boy is so great, right? Like it's just a more optimized Game Boy, right? Like that's all it is, you know. It's not a fucking new game.
And then the one that we skipped on our way back. Well, there's three that we skipped. So we'll go back forward. One handheld first. The much maligned PSP E1000, aka the Street Edition, which was like the last hurrah of the PSP. So they made the UMD cover and the battery cover the same thing. They made the speakers mono instead of stereo. The buttons on the bottom, it was basically like the equivalent of the Wii Mini. It was the cheapness model. And that's a nice transition to the Wii Mini, which was the cheapness model because they took out... Did they take out internet connectivity?
Yeah.
Or am I making that up?
They did.
I know they took out the GameCube buttons and they took out like various bits. Although I do love the way it looks, I'd have no reason to use one. And obviously now the internet connectivity is neither here nor there because those servers are gone unless you want to jump through online.
I mean, I get this one a little bit, like because they didn't have the online functionality or the SD card or anything like that, and it only had one USB port. But like I get the concept where it's cheaper. But what I don't fully understand is like they already released a revision which was called the Family Edition, right? Which had removed the GameCube one and I believe was like a little cheaper too. So I'm just kind of like, you're really stripping this thing down, which maybe I don't know how it did. It was tested here in Canada. I don't think it did great because but okay, you know, also I think everyone owned a Wii. You know what I mean? Like.
And this is also the problem. Yeah, that thing sold gangbusters to start with.
It wasn't that expensive.
No. And then the last one, and this is a really interesting one to me. Obviously, the PS3 and the revisions removing PS2 backwards compatibility and Linux support, which I think they were subject to a lawsuit over.
Because it was too easy to jailbreak it with Linux.
Yeah, it was like, this is why we can't have nice things.
Yeah.
Got that.
I think,
but didn't they do like a weird architecture, so it wasn't supposed to be like jailbroken as easily or something like that? Well, I mean, I know it didn't work because you look at the PS3 and it is jailbroken.
Yeah,
but still,
it was harder. I think. I actually, so I have a slim one. They made the super slim, which was weird, but it's like,
I had one. It's fine. It's just it doesn't feel good putting discs in and out of it.
Yeah, that top thing where it slides back and forth. I'm like, I don't trust like that.
It was fine. I mean, if the HDMI port hadn't gone on it, I'd still have that one. That's the only reason that I swapped it out for a slim. But yeah, sorry, go on.
Well, I was gonna say I don't actually have much of an issue with like the PS3 and the Xbox. I think made good revisions. Except for that last one. The last Xbox was what the fuck? The 360. Like they made the one that looked like the Xbox One, which we all just have a collective forgetfulness of the Xbox One. Although those revisions were also really good. But like I had an Xbox Elite, 360 Elite, which is the black one, which had like the bigger
hard drive
storage. Yeah, which I loved that thing. And then I switched to an Xbox 360S, which was like the really sleek one. And fuck, man, that was a console. I still have that console. It's fucking sitting in storage somewhere. That is a dope console. It looked excellent, worked great. Never red ringed because we remember the red rings, and like was just excellent. Like, and this is the thing. Like, there's been so many good revisions recently. Like, when I think about consoles in recent years, most of the revisions have been good. Like, I would say even the PS4's revisions have been quite nice. They had the Slim and then they had the PS4 Pro. I don't like the PS4 Pro looks sort of funny. Like I was like, you're making a ziggurat? Like what is this thing? It's like a pyramid, but it works great and it has lots of good stuff. And then I would say the Xbox One's revisions are phenomenal. Like they had really great ones. Like the Xbox what's that one called? Their names are stupid, but the Xbox One S was like really kind of beautiful.
One X, you're thinking, isn't it? The One S was
There's
like
a One S first.
The One X and One S. The One S is the one that doesn't take CDs, and that thing looks clean.
No.
Like
the One S took CDs.
They all took
1S?
CDs.
You're talking about the Series
It's
S.
the series that are different, yeah.
Oh,
Thanks,
sorry,
Xbox.
Yeah.
Thanks, Microsoft.
Oh, never mind.
Fuck
Yeah.
But yeah,
sake.
the One S looks like clean, and
Yeah.
it is a beautiful console.
It was 40% smaller than the one Xbox One, and it had 4K capabilities, right? And like, I don't know. And then they had the One X that came out, which was just like the beast, right? Like that was the one that was like it was all black and powerful. And so you start to see where the Series X and Series S comes from, right? The Series S is like the white ones, the Series X is the black ones. They're more powerful. And so I don't know. Like when I see that and like I see what they were capable of in 2016. I come to like.
Are you coming back to why Nintendo not doing more? Is this your full circle?
And I get it. I get that Nintendo doesn't really need to, right? I know that they do their own little thing.
They also made a tablet with a HDMI out. It's slightly different from like a console.
A tablet,
and this is the problem.
Right. Yeah.
That's basically what it is.
Honestly, yeah. But I also think that you could do stuff with the dock. You know what I mean? Like you can do shit in the dock to make it work better. Like,
I think
hell,
they do
you
that
could do
with
an
the Switch
upscaler,
too,
right?
I think they do that with the Switch too. I think they do. Yeah. I mean, the problem is how you do this without it being super expensive. But the technology is already there with home computing, where you have like an external GPU, and from a technical standpoint, there's no reason why you can't build that into a dock. From a practical standpoint. From a financial standpoint, from a pragmatic standpoint, I don't see how you do that at cost for what Nintendo wants to do and for the demo that they want to sell to. And I think that ultimately will be the problem because an eGPU costs as much as a Switch. I think even if you don't include the graphics card, definitely if you do include the graphics card. And so you want them to include all that alongside the tablet, alongside the Joy-Cons at a competitive price.
But that's Nintendo's
Maybe
problem,
for the two
not mine.
That's very true.
About the Switch that it is like more complicated is that you want the games to work well both like on dock mode and on handheld mode because that's the thing of the system, the Switch.
It's its greatest strength and its greatest weakness.
But if you want to make like a dock to make a Switch Pro or something like that, where what would happen if they want to make a Switch Lite Pro, like a smaller, more powerful system? Like how would you do that if you do the GPU or CPU escalation on the dock? That's where I think there's like this kind of bottleneck.
But that's actually not
if it runs handheld on the main, it'll run handheld on the Lite as well. You just won't be able to take advantage of the eGPU dock. Whether they do that as a separate thing even, but then that's added confusion. That's the Wii U problem all over again. And this is...
Honestly, just get an upscaler. Like that. Put an upscaler in the fucking dock, man. Like even just do that, you know? Sorry. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Paula.
I can see them doing the upscale because Nintendo being Nintendo. Like I can also stupidly see them like doing like a dock only Switch that is more like a box or something like that, because of how they already did the Switch Lite. That's already a Switch that doesn't switch.
Yeah.
So they could go like to the other extreme and make like a powerful box that runs games better. But then like people will start asking for a tablet that runs games better because like I want my games to look pretty, like both portable and on the dock, on the TV. That's the thing.
You're making me think here, because like I have the Switch Lite and a Switch, and it is dangerous. My Switch, like the saves transfer over, right? And so like quite easily and efficiently. Mm-hmm. I could see a world where they have a docked powerful Switch that you then just transfer your saves over to a not as intense version that you travel with you, right? Like your Switch Lite or whatever, your Switch 2 Lite or something like that. I could see a world where they did something like that, but I also just, who fucking knows what Nintendo's going to do? You can't predict them. They just do crazy fucking shit. They just kind of like go like, ah!
I really wonder how
they do that. Sony already did it once again with the Vita, whether it's PS4 cross save or whether it's PS TV and transferring those saves with PS Plus. Again, the Vita did it first and did it better. Go and buy a Vita.
Yeah, I think the issue is that like what happens is like, I totally agree with you. It's just that Nintendo often simplifies the process, right? Like that's just kind of like what they do.
Except when they don't, like transparent pictures.
Or like fucking party chat where you need a separate app. What cretins.
I know.
Yeah, like what the fuck? The Vita already had like the messaging out. It still works today. You can, and the way
it doesn't anymore. They've disabled it. I'm really sorry. They've literally just disabled the messages.
No, those bastards! I hate them. But like,
literally this last week.
Oh, I'm gonna fucking cry because I love to like send screenshots with my other friend that has a Vita. God
Not anymore. I'm sorry.
But at the very least, like it is very easy, like to just plug your Vita and your PC and transfer all the values you want, and you can back up your saves with either on a computer or I think it was at a PS3.
Yeah. I mean, we're also hitting up against the fact that Nintendo aims itself as a family company, right? So they always have to do these sort of workarounds to be like, we don't want you to turn on the game and have some kid. Because like, look, I grew up on the 360. I had people calling me every type of terrible word possible the minute I turn on my microphone on fucking Xbox 360. It was a nightmare. Like, you've never been called as many slurs as humanly possible in less than like 5 minutes than playing Call of Duty on an Xbox 360. Like, holy shit.
Character building.
Oh my god. More like I was like, well, I'm never turning that on again. But Nintendo,
you tie audio to parental controls. It doesn't have to be like a separate app. It's still stupid.
No, look, I agree with you, but Nintendo wants to make it like you said. It was like with the 2DS, right? They want to make it easy. They don't even want you to have to say, oh, well, you have to do. They just want to say, don't worry, it's not a thing, right? Which, do I love that? No, I hate it, and I think it's kind of a lazier way of doing it, but whatever. All I could say is this was another.
Hey, remember friend codes?
Oh my god!
Oh no!
They still kind of exist.
Yeah,
they're still there. It's Switch codes. Sorry, Paula.
Do they?
Yeah, it's Switch codes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can also add friends. Like if you already have them 3DS and you have like the same account on both systems, you can add them that way. Or if you have them on social media and like someone in which we actually do with the Automerma, you can just
Facebook integration.
It has some kind of integration. So you look at the tab that is like people you may know, and if they have a suite connected to that social account, you can like send them a friend request.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Basically, don't trust companies.
Yep.
And so don't really pat them on the back.
Hardware revisions.
Yeah, there you go. And why Alex doesn't like the OLED. All right, let's move on.
That's fine. I will love it in your stead eventually.
Yeah. Well, look, obviously, if you don't own one, yeah, go ahead.
It's funny how we have the whole spectrum that Rick is like, oh, right, I can get like the better Switch right away. I'm like, okay, I don't particularly care about it, but it is nice. Alex, on the other hand, is fuming.
Oh yeah. Oh, I just refuse to be. People are like, oh yay, 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 and they're like, Nintendo, let me suckle that teat, and I'm like, fuck off. I'm not doing that shit. I'm like, no way. Like, I'm calling it as I see it. I mean, respect for you, Rick. I'm glad you get to enjoy it because you don't have one, so enjoy it. But I'm just like,
Yeah, I did all of that for the past 3 years when I was like, I know a better one's coming. Enjoy it while it lasts.
Yeah. I feel slightly vindicated because I'm like, all right, maybe buying the Switch Lite was the right choice. So, you know what I mean? Like, I was like, nice, because it's what I wanted. Because I would never get rid of that D-pad. D-pad for life. Especially because indies are so good on it. And that's the only thing that'll be viable to play on it in the future anyway. So, moving on. Let's talk a little bit about... Let's do this kind of quickly. The question for this week from Findor, which is, what's your favorite gaming company? I'm going to rattle this off real quick because it's a new one for me. Again, I don't worship companies. They can do good. They can do bad. One that I've been enjoying recently is Finji. They're a little husband and wife team in Michigan, I think. And they're behind good old Chicory, which I loved, and Tunic and Night in the Woods, Overland, Wilmot's Garage, like a whole bunch, Wilmot's Warehouse, that's it. A whole bunch of these like really fun games. And I just like what they're doing with their games. And every time they release something, I'm like, ooh, this is really interesting. You know, like all their games are kind of neat with beautiful art styles. And so I'm like, I like you guys. So yeah, that's mine. Finji. Finji is how you spell that.
What about you, Paula?
I'm just
I
trying
think I
to
could
think
guess
because I wasn't
Rex.
prepared for this one.
Go on, who do you think mine are?
Vanillaware.
There's an argument. To be fair. I wouldn't normally say I'm a fan of companies, and I would call Vanillaware a dev more than a company. When I think of companies, I think more of publishers. But I think if we're expanding it out to devs, which is probably fair, Vanillaware would be up there. My favorite's probably a small indie outfit called Hoppo Games, HOPPO. So they made Risk of Rain, Deadbolt, which if you haven't already, you should play. It's on Switch, PS4, PS5, PC, Vita, all the things. It's incredible. They also just made Risk of Rain 2. Every one of their games has been a banger. And they're really good in terms of dev diaries. They have one on Tumblr that they keep updated. I don't have a Tumblr, but I have theirs bookmarked. And I don't know, it's nice to see just a small group of a few people just killing it and just being really happy for them and enjoying their output. And I think that's where I am. If we were to keep it narrow and talk about publishers, I know they're technically Sega now, but Atlas would probably have to be the one.
What about you, Paula?
Yeah, I was thinking about it, and there's actually two. But it's like one of them is like one section of it, because Nippon ET Software is the one that does the Liar Princess and the Blind Prince and the sequel game to it. But there's like a specific team that does it, so I'm like, it's not like I'm a fan of the whole thing. The other one would be Atlus. Like, I think out of all the companies, like, or maybe Intelligent Systems, because it is very sad, because like each time I find like a company I like the games of, they somehow like fuck it up one way or another, because like Intelligent Systems has done like the Fire Emblem franchise for ages. And I just don't like Three Houses. Like the couple of hours I played of it wasn't like really my cup of tea. I might go back and change my mind like later, but right now, like it's a little blemish on the DXN games they've done so far. And also Atlus. I love the Shin Megami Tensei franchise. I loved Persona up until Persona 5. And I've heard things about the gathering port for the HD platforms. But overall, if you take like those little things out, like the dancing games that don't exist except for the actual good one, it's an excellent company. I just hope they can like take off those grid input lenses they have right now and actually get their shit together, because when they do like these weird decisions just because they think they're gonna sell and not because they think it's an actually good idea, is when they like fuck up.
I also love that you hate like some of the most revered of the like entries for both of these, like Persona 5 and Three Houses.
Okay, the thing about Atlas is like Persona 5 is an excellent game in terms of how the combat is done.
Mm-hmm.
And the aesthetics and the music and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. But when they get to the story, they like hammer some things like okay, I'm gonna cut this part. But when they actually like do the story for Persona 5, they either like reuse concepts,
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily good concept, or they try to remake a character in some way and make it shit. Like,
Bold.
like I can see parallels between
Yeah.
characters from previous games in Persona 5.
Yeah.
I'll not say which ones,
That's funny.
but I pretty much saw a character and I said, oh, this is pretty much the discount version of this other character.
Mm. You've been in the game too long, Paula.
Yeah, but that's the thing, is like there was like so high of an expectation that it just fell flat in many areas. If you play like the previous games, you will notice those things. If you've never played like a Persona game and you play Persona 5, then you'll probably enjoy it more than I did. So yeah, like the way they're being like gathering to newer fans, yeah, I get it. But then why do you have to do this stupid amount of DLC? Why do you have to do the dancing games of Persona 3 and 5 and just make it in such an... I don't want to say an awful manner, but I want to say that Persona 4 Dancing All Night left the bar like really high because it actually had a story. And not this hidden object mode when you have to find this stupid card in the characters.
Persona 5 will always find a way. In our conversation.
Okay, I'll think I'm gonna like cut like half of that.
Sure,
because
that's funny.
I don't want to like spread salt into the world.
It went too mainstream. That's all. It's too mainstream. Well, there you go, everyone. That's interesting. You both are big Atlas heads. I like Atlas. I don't think I was
surprise of nobody.
Yeah, I wasn't indoctrinated enough in that world to get into it. You know. Not in a bad way. I just, you know what I mean? It's like with Pokemon, right? Like I've been indoctrinated into Pokemon, so I really enjoy them. It's just, there's some games, right? It's like Monster Hunter, you know? Like I bet those are excellent games. I didn't get into them early enough, you know? And now it's just, it's too big of a hill to climb.
Although Atlas is a weird case. I got into SMT when I was like 15, 16. So I got it very late. But I take the point, if it's not for you, it's
late?
not for you.
That's not late, bro. That's great.
Compared to when everyone got into Pokemon, it is very late.
Suppose. But that's also kind of when I got into like Ace Attorney and stuff, you know? Like I was like, that's when I was like, oh yeah. Anyway, all right, let's move on.
That's a company I like, actually.
Yeah, love them. Let's head off to... How long to beat the game? Paula, what are we playing this week?
Okay, let me randomize one game. And World of Goo.
World of Goo. Oh, all right. I got this.
I don't.
Maybe I'll wait.
I think this was a shorter one. I don't remember what that means, but it is a shorter game.
It is, but it's also one of those with a 3-star rating, so I feel like the 100% is going to be disgusting.
Oh, shit.
So I am going to go 6 hours main. Or in fact, no, I'm going to go 5 hours main. I'm going to go 7 hours main plus. And I'm not going to chance the 100% because I daren't. Alex is giggling like he knows better, and that's slightly concerning.
I mean, I don't know. I'm not like fully 100% confident, but...
And so the hustle begins.
I'm pretty sure I know.
I think I look up this game, but I can't remember the times to save my life. Okay, I'm gonna go 5 hours main. Do I want to go 5 hours main? I'm gonna go 6 hours main. Do I want to go 6 hours main? I remember this being a shorter game, but fuck. I remember one of the time being like double digits, but I'm not sure.
I'm going 5 hours, 6 hours and a half, and 10, I think.
Yeah. think I'm gonna go
okay.
6 hours and a half too. But I think I'm gonna go. Do I want to go higher or lower on this one?
That is
I'm
the
gonna
question.
go. I'm gonna go 10 hours and a half, or do I want
Okay.
to go 9 hours and a half? 9 hours and a half.
Okay.
Watch that half hour on the main plus screw me. I can just see it written in the stars now.
Okay, let's see. Main story 6 hours.
Nice.
Main plus extras 7 hours and a half.
Nice.
Completion is 14 hours.
Booyah!
Did I get all the points to it? Yeah.
Yeah, I think we all won based
We
on
all
what
got
we did.
points. Yeah, so I got 3 points, taking me up to 66.
I'm at 64.
Alex, 64. Paula, 55. So my lead has been halved by this week's action. But a lead it is, nevertheless.
I was giggling about this because I knew this is a WiiWare game, and I was like, I'm pretty damn sure because I remember playing this, I think, back in the day, and I was like, I knew it couldn't be longer than like fucking, 10 hours or so. You know what I mean?
Yeah, albeit the 5 hour buffer is the only reason you caught it. I knew the 100% was chunky. I wasn't sure how chunky, so I didn't want to risk it.
That was what I was thinking. I was like, there's no way. I'm like, if I do 10 hours, that 5 hours, like, there's no way it's longer than 15 hours. You know what I mean? And there's no way it's less than that. So I was like,
it almost was though. It almost was,
but it wasn't.
That's true. That's very true.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody, to another. This is a chill episode. This is fun. I liked it. Feels very relaxed compared to our heat wave episodes we've had over the last 3 weeks.
Was it really? Was
Yeah,
it?
I mean, we got heated,
and the OLED.
but we got heated in a fun way.
All right.
we got heated while we were heated.
Yes.
And it's still muggy here in the UK, but I do feel a little bit like a human again. And I like you said, I think that probably shines through in the conversations we're having.
Yeah. All right. Well, toodaloo, everybody. We'll see you in a week. Well, you'll see us.
Take it easy.
Bye.
Bye.